They didn't even tell me she died. Claire stared at the text from her cousin, her hands trembling. Her grandmother, her rock, her safe space in a cruel world, had passed away 3 days ago, and her own family hadn't bothered to inform her. No call, no message, not even a half-hearted email. But that wasn't the worst part. The real stab came next, the wills being read tomorrow. Only the chosen ones are invited. Chosen. That's what they were calling themselves. Now? Claire's parents, her Aunt Marlene, Uncle Rick, and even her little sister Emily, all sitting high and mighty like some royal bloodline while she was tossed aside like trash, her chest tightened with a painful twist of betrayal. Just a month ago, Grandma had hugged her tightly and whispered, "Don't let them crush your fire, sweetheart. You're worth more than you think." Claire thought it was just an emotional moment, an old woman speaking from love. But now it felt like a warning, like Grandma knew what they were planning. And the pieces were falling into place like shards of broken glass. Claire had always been the problem child to them, the one who spoke her mind, who refused to play along with the family's fake perfection. They called her rebellious, dramatic. And their favorite insult, ungrateful. When Claire refused to quit her art degree to join the family business, they cut her off financially and emotionally. Grandma was the only one who supported her, quietly paying her rent, helping with tuition, and cheering her on from the shadows. And now, when that same woman's legacy was being carved into legal stone, Claire wasn't even given a seat at the table. Her mother's words echoed in her head, "You made your choices, Claire. Actions have consequences." But Claire had a gut feeling something bigger was at play. Something they didn't want her to see. So when her cousin added one final line, "The lawyer asked if you were coming. Thought you should know." Claire didn't hesitate, she booked the next bus to Oak Ridge. No plan. No invitation. Just fury, grief, and a heart full of questions. If they thought she'd stay silent, they had no idea who they were messing with. What Claire didn't know was that Grandma had left her something. And not just a little. Something. Something that would shake the entire family, and burn their carefully crafted lies to the ground. The will reading was held in Grandma's old Victorian home, now eerily silent without her laugh echoing through the halls. Claire stood outside the front door for a moment, her boots planted like roots on the porch she'd once danced barefoot on as a child. Inside, they were all there. Her parents sitting stiff-backed in the antique chairs. Aunt Marlene already pretending to dab her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Emily scrolling on her phone, clearly bored. And at the center of it all, behind Grandma's carved oak desk, sat a man Claire didn't recognize, tall, composed, with steel-gray eyes and a folder in hand. "Claire?" he asked, rising slightly. "Claire Morgan?" She nodded. "Yes. I wasn't exactly invited." He gave a knowing smile. "No, but you were expected." The room froze, her mother's voice cut the air like a blade. "This is highly inappropriate. She has no place here." Mother made it clear she made it very clear, the lawyer interrupted, flipping open the folder. "Which is why we're all here today. I am Mr. Dalton, her attorney. Per her final wishes, the reading begins only when all named individuals are present. Now that Claire has arrived, we may begin." Claire sat down slowly, her heart pounding in her throat. Her father glared at her like she was a stain on his suit. But it didn't matter. She was here. And something told her this wasn't going to go the way they thought. Mr. Dalton began reading the will. Small bequests trickled out first, Grandma's tea set to Marlene, a collection of antique coins to Uncle Rick, a pearl necklace to Emily. Claire watched them nod smugly, already imagining their trinkets on display. Then came the turning point, to "My granddaughter, Claire Morgan." Mr. Dalton paused. The room collectively stiffened. "I leave the deed to the Lakehouse property in Evergreen, all its contents, and full ownership of my trust account, amounting to $1.3 million. Silence, you could have heard a pin drop, or the sound of Aunt Marlene choking on her own breath. Claire's breath caught. The Lakehouse? Grandma's pride and joy? The place where they'd spent every summer painting sunsets, catching fireflies, and dreaming about a life far away from the judgment of this cold, polished family? And the trust account? Her mother's voice quivered with barely restrained rage. "There has to be a mistake. That money was meant to be divided." "No," Mr. Dalton replied firmly, holding up the document. "There's a recorded video message from your mother, dated 2 weeks before her passing. She was very specific. Would you all like to view it now?" Claire's spine tingled. Her grandmother's voice, beyond the grave? Something told her this wasn't just about money, this was a message meant to burn bridges. Or reveal who'd been secretly lighting the match all along. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly, there she was, Grandma Eleanor. Frail but fierce, her silver hair pulled into her usual bun, eyes sharp with the kind of clarity only the dying possess. She sat in her favorite garden chair, sunlight pouring over her like a final blessing. If you're watching this, she began, her voice calm but weighted, then I'm gone, and so are all the lies. Aunt Marlene shifted uncomfortably. Claire could feel the energy in the room darken. Eleanor continued, her voice unwavering, I know what you've all said about Claire. That she's wild. Ungrateful. A disappointment. But the truth? She's the only one who never pretended to love me while plotting behind my back. Uncle Rick let out a scoff, but Grandma's next words froze him. Yes, Rick. I know you tried to convince me to sell the lake house and invest in your so-called startup. The same one that collapsed in 6 months because you gambled away the funds. Claire's jaw dropped. She turned slowly toward her uncle, whose face was now ghost pale, and Marlene, I've read every cruel message you sent about me to your friends. How I was senile, and how you couldn't wait to see me gone so you could gut the house and make it your dream cottage. Eleanor let out a bitter laugh. Dream on. Marlene's hand clutched her pearls as if they could somehow choke out the truth, and Emily, sweetheart, Grandma said gently, her tone shifting. You're young, and I don't blame you for being confused. But ignoring Claire, laughing at her pain just to stay in good favor with your mother. I hope you grow out of that. Emily's phone slid quietly into her purse, then Eleanor's. Eyes focused on the camera like a dagger, but Claire, my darling girl. You showed up for me when no one else did. You brought me soup when I was sick, listened when I cried, and stood by me even when they turned you into the family's black sheep. So yes, I'm giving you everything. Not because you need it. But because you earned it. With love, not lies. The screen went black. Claire felt tears sting her eyes, not from victory, but from the ache of love finally being seen. Mr. Dalton cleared his throat. As per her instructions, Claire is now the legal owner of the Evergreen Lake House, all associated assets, and sole beneficiary of the trust. Her father stood abruptly. This is absurd. This will must be challenged. It was notarized, recorded, and reviewed multiple times, Dalton interrupted coolly. You're welcome to try. But you'll lose. Claire sat there, stunned. Her heart a storm of grief, shock, and something else rising inside her, strength. Power. For the first time, she wasn't being silenced. She wasn't invisible, she was the legacy, but just as she stood to leave, Mr. Dalton stopped her. Claire, there's one more thing. Everyone turned, one final envelope. Handwritten. For your eyes only. Claire's fingers trembled as she reached for it. What secret had Grandma saved for last, and why was her name written, in red ink? Claire stepped outside, the envelope burning like fire in her hands. Her family remained behind, stunned and seething. The walls of Grandma's house, once warm and full of laughter, now echoed with silent bitterness. But Claire didn't care. She needed air. She needed answers. She walked down to the garden bench where Grandma had filmed that message, sat down, and slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter, written in Grandma's flowing, cursive handwriting. But this wasn't a love note. It was a confession. Claire, if you're reading this, then everything has been set in motion. But there is more you deserve to know, more than I could ever say out loud. This family, it hasn't just been cruel to you. It's hidden things. Ugly things. And you, my brave girl, are the one who must bring them into the light. The money I left you wasn't just savings. Part of it came from the sale of a property I owned in New York, one that was never in my name on paper. I bought it after discovering your grandfather had been hiding a second family. Yes. A mistress. 2 children. I never told anyone. Not even your mother, but here's where it gets darker. When I found out, I confronted him, and 2 weeks later, he was dead. Car crash. But I never believed it was an accident. And I believe, someone in this family knew more than they ever let on. Claire's heart stopped. The documents are inside the safe at the lake house. Combination is your birthday backward. Inside you'll find property deeds, bank transfers, and a black notebook. That notebook holds the truth about your grandfather's double life. About why Marlene and Rick were so desperate for my silence. I was too afraid to face it in life. But you? You're the only one with the courage to finish what I couldn't. Claire stared at the letter, her pulse thundering in her ears. The weight of what she held, it was no longer just inheritance. It was an invitation to war. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. No name. Just a single line. You should have stayed out of this, Claire. Her blood ran cold. She looked around, but the garden was empty. Still, something told her, someone had been watching. Someone who knew exactly what Grandma had revealed, and wanted to make sure the rest never came out. Claire clutched the letter tighter. For years, they had silenced her, isolated her, made her feel small, but now, she had the truth. And she wasn't just going to protect Grandma's legacy, she was going to expose the rot that had poisoned her family for generations. They wanted her out? Too late. Claire was just getting started. 3 days later, Claire stood in front of the lake house, Grandma's true heart, nestled between towering pines and the still waters of Evergreen Lake. The sun was dipping low, casting gold across the surface. In her hands, she held the key. Inside, behind the bookshelf in Grandma's study, just like the letter said, was the safe. Claire had opened it that morning. What she found inside had shattered everything she thought she knew about her family. There were documents proving that the family business, Morgan and Company, was originally co-founded by her grandfather and another woman. A woman who wasn't Eleanor. There were bank statements showing hush money being funneled for years into offshore accounts. Claire had matched the names to two boys in Brooklyn, both now grown men. Her half-uncles, and the black notebook? It was Grandma's private journal. Every entry was dated, every suspicion written in vivid detail. Eleanor had known for decades, but she kept silent to protect her daughters. She had begged Rick and Marlene to let her tell the truth after her husband died. But instead, they turned against her, threatened her, called her senile. That's when Eleanor began planning. Quietly moving money. Gathering proof. Naming Claire not just as an heir, but as a witness to truth. Claire took a breath and walked back inside. The lawyer, Mr. Dalton, sat across from her with a steady expression. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm not just keeping the inheritance. I'm filing a claim. Fraud. Financial manipulation. Emotional abuse. I'm exposing all of it. Publicly. They'll come after you," he said. "Especially your parents." Claire gave a small, tired smile. "Let them. They've been coming after me my whole life. They just didn't realize I was watching." By sunset, the first call came. It was her mother. "Claire, listen to me," she said, voice trembling between panic and guilt. "This is family business. We can fix this. Don't destroy everything. Just because you're angry." But Claire didn't flinch. "You destroyed this the day you lied to me about Grandma's death." Her mother went silent. Claire hung up. That night, she posted a thread online, a scanned copy of her grandmother's will, pages from the notebook, and a brief but blistering story of generational betrayal, truth, and silence. Within hours, it went viral. Thousands of strangers stood by her. Dozens of people who'd been pushed out of their families messaged her, thanking her for being brave enough to speak. And the media? They ate it up. By morning, Claire was trending. Marlene and Rick's reputations were in ruins. The family business faced investigations. And Emily? She messaged Claire too. Just 3 words: "I'm sorry. Teach me." Claire didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she stood on the lakehouse porch, wrapped in Grandma's shawl, watching the sun rise over the water. She had been called ungrateful, dramatic, lesser, but now, Claire wasn't just the black sheep, she was the truth bearer. The cycle breaker. The girl they tried to silence, who became the voice they could never ignore again.